Hi, I'm Paul Arthur. This is Forum Daily West. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. There are conflicting reports out of Washington today, with the White House denying rumors of a delayed start to Trump's tariffs. The cockpit voice recorder, airline sugar packs, along with other aircraft parts recovered in the Potomac River following Wednesday's mid-air collision in Washington, D.C. The Liberal leadership race narrows, with Jamie Battiste dropping out to back Mark Carney, who releases his plan to replace the consumer carbon tax. Thanks for joining us. Investigators have already recovered the cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder of the American Airlines plane that collided with an Army helicopter as the plane was landing Wednesday night at Ronald Reagan National Airport next to Washington, D.C. The Associated Press is reporting this is the U.S.'s deadliest aviation disaster in nearly 25 years.
Search teams have recovered 40 bodies from the Potomac River after 67 people were killed in a mid-air collision between a passenger plane and a US Army helicopter. The black box flight recorders from the passenger plane were also recovered and are being examined by experts from the National Transportation Safety Board. 67 people on board the two aircrafts were killed. It's the US's deadliest aviation disaster in almost 25 years. Rescue operations were switched to recovery operations. The search has been made difficult by freezing conditions, with divers swimming in icy waters. Reports have said that the search was briefly suspended due to the weather. The cause of the collision is unclear. While the investigation could take months, investigators have pledged to release a preliminary report within 30 days. Passengers on the flight included a group of figure skaters, their coaches, and their family members. Their deaths have devastated a local community. The plane was landing Wednesday night at Ronald Reagan National Airport when the collision occurred.
Meantime, a boater on the Potomac River continues to find a grim trail of debris like airline seat parts and American Airlines branded sugar packets following Wednesday night's mid-air collision.
So I was told by FBI and Alexandria Police that I could go downriver as long as I stayed away from the main crash site. But I found a debris field here right near Oxon Cove. These are some of the sugar packets from the plane and some debris, but you can kind of see this little debris field. There's another piece of the plane. Looks like part of the seat, actually. So I just pulled this out of the river, and this is part of the landing gear procedure. So I'm getting ready to head back upriver, but I just keep finding debris.
A grim situation there in Washington. And in other news out of Washington, the White House says U.S. President Donald Trump will implement 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican imports starting tomorrow. There were some conflicting reports earlier today that Trump's tariffs against Canada and Mexico could begin on March 1st instead of February 1st. Reuters earlier reported that 3 people familiar with the planning, who wish to remain anonymous because they're not authorized to speak publicly on the matter, told the news outlet that this could include a process for Canada and Mexico to seek specific exemptions for certain imports. According to Reuters, the tariff situation remained fluid on Friday, and no decision had been finalized until Trump could make a public announcement. However, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt denied the report that Trump would delay the devastating duties until March.
I was just with the president in the Oval Office, and I can confirm that tomorrow, the February 1st deadline that President Trump put into place at a statement several weeks ago continues. The president will be implementing tomorrow a 25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% tariffs on Canada, and a 10% tariff on China for the illegal fentanyl that they have sourced and allowed to distribute into our country, which has killed tens of millions of Americans. These are promises made and promises kept by the president.
For at least the past decade, dogs have been used to help sniff out oil spills in Canada. But a new study suggests dogs can sniff out oil spills even when they're submerged underwater or captured under ice. The star of the study is a 6-year-old Springer Spaniel named Poppy, who carried out the tests at Ontario's experimental lakes area near the Manitoba border. Dog trainer Paul Bunker describes the testing site and Poppy's amazing response.
This is the first time in the world that we know of that dogs have ever detected oil actually under the ice. The prior test of oil was they drilled a hole, placed some oil in a hole, put some snow on top. In this case, they actually placed the oil under the ice and then capped it all and then left it. So in this case, it was actually frozen under ice.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Canada is ready to deliver a forceful yet reasonable and immediate response if Trump makes good on the threat. Trudeau says it's not the outcome Canada wants, but the government will act if it needs to.
Our government has responded to what the president is focused on and what is motivating him to consider applying tariffs as early as tomorrow, the flow of fentanyl and illegal crossings into the United States. Now, let me reiterate. Our border is safe and secure, and less than 1% of fentanyl and illegal crossings into the United States come from Canada. We're committed to keeping it that way by addressing current challenges and strengthening our capacity. Right now, we're showing the new American administration that they have a strong partner in Canada when it comes to upholding border security, all while simultaneously underscoring that we won't back down. That if tariffs are implemented against Canada, we will respond. We won't relent until tariffs are removed, and of course, everything is on the table.
His remarks come as three ministers are in Washington making a final diplomatic push to convince Trump's team to sway the president. Meantime, Liberal leadership contender Chrystia Freeland says Canada needs to give Trump's closest supporters and allies a wake-up call, such as Elon Musk. In a social media post, Freeland said we must hit back dollar for dollar, starting with 100% tariffs on all Tesla vehicles and U.S. wine, beer, and spirits. We must protect Canadian workers and businesses. The Liberal Party leadership race has narrowed. Nova Scotia Liberal MP Jamie Battiste says he's dropping out and backing former central banker Mark Carney. Battiste was the only Indigenous candidate in the running and sought to put First Nations issues on the agenda during the contest. Liberal MPs Chrystia Freeland and Karina Gould and former MPs Frank Baylis and Ruby Dalla are also in the race. Earlier this week, hopes for the Liberal leadership ended for Ontario MP Chandra Arya after being disqualified by the Liberal Party. In Halifax, federal Liberal leadership candidate Mark Carney released his plan to replace the consumer carbon tax. He's proposing a system of incentives aimed at encouraging Canadians to make greener purchases.
First, as I mentioned, to help Canadians invest in greener policies, we'll have the big polluters pay for climate incentives by developing and integrating a new consumer carbon credit market into the industrial pricing system. That way we ensure that taxpayers aren't on the hook for consumer climate incentives, while we still provide price certainty for households when they make climate smart choices. The second thing we'll do is, with a new Made in Canada competitiveness strategy, my government will improve and tighten the output-based pricing system for large companies. We'll extend it to 2035, and we will speed up approvals of clean energy projects.
The Canadian Taxpayers Federation is calling on Mark Carney to bring clarification on his carbon pricing plan. Federal Director Franco Terrazzano says that Canadians need to be sure that they aren't just getting a rebranded new tax renamed as an incentive.
It sounds more like a replacement carbon tax plan, if anything, right? I watched Carney's press conference and he was as clear as mud, right? And until Carney is able to give Canadians a clear answer on the question about carbon taxes, he won't have a shred of credibility on the most important question of affordability. And, it sounded to me, listening to that press conference, that he's going to put a carbon tax on businesses. But businesses just pass those carbon tax costs on to consumers, right? So a carbon tax on refineries makes gas more expensive. A carbon tax on utilities makes home heating more expensive. A carbon tax on fertilizer plants makes it cost more for farmers to grow food and therefore makes groceries more expensive. So at the end of the day, Canadians can't afford to pay a carbon tax by another name. Canadians want the carbon tax completely scrapped.
Lethbridge police are warning the public of increased phone scams in the community. LPS says they received an influx of reports of scammer calls. In 2 separate cases, 2 seniors had $7,000 and $8,000 taken from them respectively. The scammers each claimed that their grandchild was held in jail and needed money immediately, and an unknown person came to each home to collect the money. Police remind residents to always verify the legitimacy of the caller, avoid disclosing any public information, and do not give any form of payment over the phone or if someone stops by your house to pick it up. Bail is always paid at a police station, courthouse, or correctional center. The federal government has delayed its changes to the capital gains tax next year. The change hikes the portion of capital gains that companies pay tax on from 1/2 to 2/3, and also applies to individuals with capital gains higher than $250,000. The deferral offers Canadians and businesses seeking clarity on the matter more time as the tax deadline nears. The implementation date was June 25th of last year, but it didn't get through Parliament before it was prorogued. The Canada Revenue Agency had already begun to administer the change after the government announced it, but now says it will go back to the existing capital gains inclusion rate. You may recall that Canada recently had to replace one of its firefighting aircraft that was sent to help manage the Los Angeles wildfires after a drone collided with the carrier. Well, today in Los Angeles, a man agreed to plead guilty to unsafely operating the drone that collided with the firefighting aircraft during the deadly Palisades fire.
Contrary to law and basic common sense, some individuals were recklessly operating drones around the firefighting relief efforts. They were operating drones in areas specifically being used by firefighting aircrafts conducting assaults against the fires. Today, we announced the filing of a federal criminal charge against one individual who was engaged in that conduct, a Los Angeles area man who launched a drone, lost sight of it, and that drone eventually collided with a Super Scooper firefighting aircraft, one of the most important firefighting aircrafts in the firefighting arsenal.
Lack of common sense and ignorance of your duty as a drone pilot will not shield you from criminal penalties. Please respect the law, respect the FAA restrictions, and respect our firefighters.
Checking traffic conditions on Highway 3 in Lethbridge just got a little easier. Here's a new look at the Crow's Nest Highway looking westward from the new traffic camera installed by the City of Lethbridge. The city had added 5 traffic cameras for viewers to get a live view of traffic status in our city. 4 other cameras monitor Whoop Up Drive as well as the exits at Scenic and University Drive. The cameras update shots every 2 minutes, and you can find them yourself on the city's website. The Lethbridge Pregnancy Care Centre says it's running low on items. The centre provides support and education to people going through an unexpected pregnancy or pregnancy loss, and offers services through workshops to foster healthy relationships, and delivers baby products for its clients. Danielle Coop, Executive Director of the Lethbridge Pregnancy Care Centre, explains what the current need is.
And so one of the things that we offer here at the center is supports and resources to help alleviate those burdens for families for whom that's a concern. So things like formula, diapers, and wipes. The community can donate either by bringing those items to us. With formula, we ask for powdered formula because it doesn't expire as quickly. Things like diapers, wipes, you just can buy a box at the grocery store and drop it off. The other option actually that we've recently started is an Amazon wish list. Select some items, pay for it, and have it shipped directly to the center for our clients. Or the third way is to go onto our website, lethbridgepragcenter.com, and donate financially. And we can use those funds then to purchase the items needed for families. Oftentimes when people think of an unexpected pregnancy, they do picture a young person. However, we have clients all the way up into their 50s. We had clients who believe they're entering menopause and realize that actually it's a pregnancy. So some of our clients are looking at financial concerns. Others are very well established and don't need the material support.
Coop says since opening in 2013, the center has walked alongside over 2,000 clients and their families. As mentioned previously on Bridge City News, last summer's Jasper, Alberta wildfire was estimated to be the second costliest wildfire in Canadian history. And as the community of Jasper recovers, more than $170 million has been provided by the provincial government for recovery and rebuilding efforts. Through a dollar-for-dollar donation matching initiative with the Canadian Red Cross over the span of 30 days, the province also helped fundraise more than $40 million to provide affected families, residents, businesses, and not-for-profits of Jasper with a variety of supports, including financial assistance and a small business supports program. The University of Calgary is expecting an $11 million hit to tuition revenue due to a decline in international enrollment. Alberta was allowed to welcome more international students last year than it did in 2023, but is still projected to see a 30% decline in enrollment from abroad. Many post-secondary institutions across Canada are also expecting significant hits to their budgets as the federal government aims to lower the number of international permits it issues again this year.